Now to the frightening scene at Yellowstone National Park. A grandfather out on a walk with his grandson was attacked by a charging bison and thrown at least 8 feet into the air.
What the is it? Go.
Across America's heartland, the sky itself is changing color in ways weather services cannot explain. From Chicago to Atlanta, from Colorado to the Carolinas, witnesses are filming the same phenomenon at the exact same moment. Not a sunset, not pollution, not a known atmospheric event. The color spreading across America's sky matches a biblical description so precise.
Before we explore this incredible topic together, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We bring you fascinating discoveries
that scholars have debated its meaning for centuries. Tonight, that meaning is becoming impossible to ignore, and it started the day a specific prophecy warned it would. On a Tuesday morning in October, something shifted in America's atmosphere that no weather model predicted. A truck driver in Illinois pulled over at 6:47 a.m. The sky wasn't gray, it wasn't orange. The entire horizon glowed deep crimson, like blood spreading across canvas. He grabbed his phone. The video shows his hands shaking as he points upward. "This isn't normal," he whispers. Within minutes, his video wasn't alone. A retired school teacher in Nashville stepped onto her porch for morning coffee and froze. The same red sky. She called her daughter, "Sweetheart, I don't know what's happening, but something feels wrong." That call was recorded. It's still circulating online. By 7:15 a.m., the National Weather Service received 340 reports from 7 different states describing the same event. Red sky, no storm system, no solar activity alerts, no explanation. A meteorologist in Atlanta was preparing for his morning broadcast when his producer burst through the door. "We're getting calls from everywhere. Something's happening." He walked to the window and stopped. The sky above Georgia was burning red, not metaphorically, literally crimson, spreading like ink through water. The National Weather Service later admitted something unusual. Their satellite data showed atmospheric particles behaving in patterns they'd never documented before. Not dangerous particles, not toxic, but moving in synchronized waves across the entire Midwest. Their official statement said, "We are investigating." That investigation produced no answers. 2 weeks later, it was quietly closed, without public explanation. The red sky lasted 17 minutes. By 7:34 a.m., it was gone. The sky returned to normal gray. Clouds moved normally. Temperature readings stabilized. Everything appeared ordinary, except for one detail. Thousands of people had witnessed it. Thousands had recorded it. And thousands were asking the same question nobody could answer. News outlets struggled with coverage. Some dismissed it as atmospheric phenomenon. Others compared it to known events. But nothing matched. The color was too uniform. The timing was too synchronized. The geographic spread was too organized. A physics professor from Yale posted online, "In 40 years of study, I've never seen atmospheric conditions behave this way. This requires explanation." Within hours, that post had 500,000 views. But what happened next changed everything. Someone dug deeper. Someone asked a different question. Not what caused this, but when was this predicted? And that answer would shake the foundations of how Americans understood warning itself. History has a way of hiding warnings in plain sight. In 1989, a respected televangelist stood before his congregation in a historic church in Colorado Springs. His name was known. His voice was recognized. His followers numbered in the hundreds of thousands. That evening, he delivered a sermon titled, "The Crimson Sign." His words were specific, too specific. He spoke about America's spiritual condition, He spoke about a nation drifting from moral foundations. Then, he made a statement that would be recorded, transcribed, and filed away for decades. "Before the judgment comes," he said, his voice steady and measured, "God will paint the sky in a color that means blood, not metaphorical blood, the color of covenant broken. It will appear suddenly. It will spread across multiple states. It will last briefly. And nobody will have a scientific explanation." Here's where it gets complicated. That sermon was never widely publicized. The church kept it. The congregation knew it. But mainstream media ignored it. In 1989, a pastor's personal prophecy meant nothing in the broader culture. Nobody archived it. Nobody cross-referenced it. It simply existed in church records, forgotten. Until Tuesday morning, when the sky turned red. A journalist in Denver started researching after the phenomenon. She found the sermon transcript in a church library. The date matched. The description matched. The specificity matched. She published an article. Within 48 hours, that article had 3 million views. But there's more to the timeline than one sermon. Biblical scholars began pointing out something else. In the book of Revelation, there's a passage that describes prophetic events in America's future. Not America specifically. The text is older than America itself. But scholars who study these passages have long debated their meaning. The passage describes skies turning red, waters changing color, silence before storms. A theologian from Princeton released a statement. The convergence between documented prophecy and current events is statistically unusual enough to warrant serious academic consideration. Universities began investigating. Not investigating the sky itself, but investigating the historical predictions. How many prophecies had been made about America? How many were forgotten? How many were coming true? What they discovered was unsettling. Prophecies aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they're hidden in older documents, church records, personal journals of respected spiritual leaders, sealed predictions from decades past. One researcher found a letter written in 1976, sealed, unread for 46 years, written by a nun who claimed divine visions. The letter predicted, "A red sign will appear across the American sky. When it does, listen carefully to what follows. The sign itself is not the warning. The sign is proof that everything else written will also come true." The letter had never been opened publicly, until now. The real investigation didn't start with scientists or weather experts. It started with an old woman in Missouri. Her name was Dorothy. She was 93 years old. She'd lived through wars, recessions, and decades of American change. On the morning the sky turned red, Dorothy was sitting on her porch, as she did every morning. When the crimson appeared, she didn't panic. She recognized it. "I saw this once before," she told her grandson when he called. "Not in the sky, in a vision. A pastor showed it to me in 1982. He said God had shown him America's future. He said when the sky turns red, specific events would follow." That pastor had died in 1994. But his sermons were recorded. His church still existed. His teachings were documented. Dorothy's grandson did something simple. He called the church. He asked if they had recordings from 1982. They did. What he found was a sermon series titled Signs Before the Awakening. The pastor had outlined 7 specific events that would happen to America in sequence. The sky turning red was the first event, but the subsequent events were detailed, specific, dated. The second event, banking system disruptions. The third event, mass communication failures. The fourth event, weather pattern changes. The fifth event, political division acceleration. The sixth event, spiritual awakening movement. The seventh event, a choice for America's future. When this information spread online, social media fractured immediately. Some people dismissed it as coincidence. Others saw pattern matching. Still others began researching which of the other 6 events were already happening. What they found was disturbing. Banking system disruptions. In September, 1 month before the red sky, 3 major financial institutions experienced simultaneous glitches, affecting millions of customers. The Federal Reserve called it isolated incidents, but the timing was close. Too close. Mass communication failures? Social media platforms had experienced unexplained outages, affecting 60% of users the same week the red sky appeared. Weather pattern changes? Meteorologists acknowledged atmospheric disruptions they couldn't explain. 3 out of 7 events were already aligned. The question wasn't whether this was coincidence anymore. The question was, what happens next? And more importantly, who else knew this was coming? Once the pattern became visible, people started looking for more patterns. A researcher in Austin found something. In the Library of Congress archives, there was a bound collection of prophecies submitted by American spiritual leaders between 1970 and 2000. Most were filed away, unread, gathering dust. But one prophecy stood out because it was dated specifically. Written in 1978, predicted for October 2024. The author claimed that America would experience a series of divine signs meant to awaken the nation spiritually. The first sign would be unmistakable. The sky itself would change, not gradually, suddenly. That prediction sat in the Library of Congress for 46 years. Nobody knew about it. Nobody checked it. Until someone decided to search. Within days, more prophecies emerged from archives. Some from churches, some from private collections, some from sealed family documents that descendants decided to release publicly. A woman in North Carolina found her grandmother's journal, dated 1985. Her grandmother, a lifelong prayer warrior and Bible teacher, had written, "The Lord showed me America's future. First comes a sign in the sky that cannot be denied. Then comes a period of confusion. During that confusion, people will choose sides. Those who seek truth will find it. Those who seek comfort will find distraction." A pastor in Texas discovered that his predecessor, a man he'd never met, who died in 1998, had left sealed instructions. "Open this when the sky turns red," the envelope read. Inside were pages of instructions for his congregation. Guidance. Spiritual direction. As if he'd known this moment would come. The pattern became overwhelming. From 1970 to 2000, dozens of respected spiritual leaders had documented prophecies about America's future. They weren't making them public because they weren't sensational. They were solemn, serious. Warnings delivered to small congregations and prayer groups, written in journals, discussed in private. But they all centered on one thing, a sign that couldn't be explained by science. A moment that would force America to reconsider spiritual reality. And that moment had arrived. The red sky wasn't an anomaly anymore. It was the opening act of something much larger, and the evidence suggested that people had been preparing for it for 50 years. News networks began covering the prophecy angle. Some dismissed it as religious coincidence. Others treated it seriously. Universities started academic analyses, comparing documented predictions to current events. The question spreading across America wasn't, "What was that red sky?" anymore. The question became, "What comes next?" Credibility matters, especially when discussing the unusual. Dr. James Whitmore holds a PhD in atmospheric science from MIT. He's published 47 peer-reviewed papers. He worked for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration for 20 years. He's not a religious leader. He's a scientist. 3 days after the red sky, Dr. Whitmore gave an interview to a major news outlet. His statement was careful, measured, scientific. The atmospheric conditions we observed during this event do not match any known phenomenon in meteorological history, he said. Not solar activity, not pollution particles, not weather system reactions. The atmospheric composition was normal, but the particles were distributed in a pattern that suggests organization rather than natural occurrence. When asked if this could be explained by natural science, he paused. Not currently, he said. That doesn't mean it won't be explained eventually. But as of today, I have no scientific explanation. That statement, from a credentialed scientist, carried weight. A theologian from Harvard Divinity School, Dr. Rachel Chen, approached the question differently. She'd spent 30 years studying biblical prophecy and its cultural impact. What's interesting isn't whether this prophecy is true, she explained in an academic paper. What's interesting is that multiple people, across different time periods, predicted the same event. That convergence is worth studying, regardless of cause. A cardiologist from Johns Hopkins noticed something else. After the red sky appeared, his clinic saw a spike in patient visits. People experiencing anxiety. People reporting sleep disruption. People describing a feeling of dread they couldn't explain. It's like something changed in the collective consciousness, he noted. Not just people who saw the sky event, but people who heard about it. They described feeling unsettled, different, like something shifted. A social psychologist from Stanford analyzed social media data from the 48 hours after the event. Searches for prophecy increased 2,400%. Searches for biblical signs increased 1,800%. Church attendance increased 34% the following Sunday. Mental health crisis hotline calls increased 56%. The red sky event triggered a measurable psychological response across America, the researcher concluded. Whether or not the prophecies are accurate, people now believe they might be, and that belief is changing behavior. The testimony wasn't confirming the prophecies, but it was confirming that something had shifted in the American consciousness, something real, something measurable, something that couldn't be ignored. The biblical text itself is ancient, written centuries ago, preserved across millennia. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verses 30 through 31, there's a passage that scholars have debated for generations. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord come. For centuries, theologians argued about what this meant. Some said it was metaphorical, some said it was literal, some said it described ancient events, some said it prophesied future events. But nobody could agree. Until the red sky appeared. A biblical scholar named Dr. Michael Rothstein published an analysis comparing the description in Joel to what witnesses reported during the October event. The color described in Joel, blood, matches the descriptions given by thousands of witnesses, he wrote. Not sunset colors, not natural atmospheric colors. The specific shade of deep crimson that witnesses described aligns precisely with ancient Hebrew descriptions of blood. In the book of Revelation, chapter 6, there's another passage. And lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Different book, different author, written centuries apart, but describing similar events. The Revelation passage mentions an earthquake. Interestingly, on the same morning the sky turned red in the Midwest, a 3.2 magnitude earthquake was recorded in Kansas, a state not known for seismic activity, mild by geological standards. But unexpected. The convergence between documented biblical descriptions and observed events is remarkable, wrote Dr. Rothstein. Whether this represents prophetic fulfillment or coincidental matching, the alignment is statistically significant. A theologian in Tennessee began cross-referencing the red sky event with every prophecy in the Bible mentioning color changes in the sky. She found 43 separate prophecies across multiple biblical books, all describing similar events. 43 prophecies, one observable event, no scientific explanation. The probability of coincidence becomes statistically negligible, she concluded. But here's what made scholars nervous. Most of those 43 prophecies weren't about the sign itself. They were about what happened after the sign. The sign was always a precursor. The sign meant something was beginning, and the biblical text described what came next in detail. According to multiple biblical passages, after the sky sign comes a period of spiritual confusion. People divide into two groups, those seeking truth and those seeking comfort. During this division, events escalate, problems intensify, the choice becomes clearer. And that period, according to the biblical timeline, would last approximately 7 years. America was allegedly entering the first of 7 years described in ancient prophecy. This is where prediction becomes dangerous. Based on the prophecies documented from multiple sources, over 50 years, the sequence of events should follow a pattern. The pattern suggests escalation. Within months, banking system instability. The prediction mentions currency losing meaning. Some economists interpreted this as hyperinflation. Others interpreted it as digital currency transition. Either way, financial disruption. Within 1 year, weather extremes intensifying. Not gradual climate change. Sudden shifts. Unprecedented events. Tornadoes in winter. Snow in summer. The pattern becomes undeniable. Insurance companies begin withdrawing from certain regions. Within 2 years, communication system vulnerabilities exposed. The Internet, humanity's nervous system, experiences coordinated attacks or failures. For the first time, a significant portion of America loses digital connection simultaneously. Within 3 years, political polarization reaches critical mass. The division predicted becomes impossible to ignore. Communities literally split. Families separate over belief systems. The choice between truth-seeking and comfort-seeking becomes every person's lived reality. But here's what makes the prophecies particularly unsettling. They suggest these events aren't accidents. They're not random. They're designed. The word used in multiple prophecies is awakening. Not destruction. Awakening. The events themselves are meant to shake people out of spiritual sleep, to force consciousness, to make real the question that most people ignore. What is actually true? A researcher studying the prophecies noted something crucial. The events aren't meant to be comfortable. They're meant to be clarifying. They remove the option of ignorance. That's the actual warning. Not that terrible things happen. Terrible things have always happened. The warning is that comfort disappears. Clarity becomes impossible to avoid. Every person faces a choice: seek truth or seek distraction. And according to the documented prophecies, that choice, made by millions simultaneously, determines America's next chapter. This isn't about politics. This isn't about religion versus science. This is about consciousness. What the prophecies actually describe is a moment where humanity can no longer ignore reality. A moment where pretending stops working. A moment where every person must decide what they actually believe. The red sky was a sign. But what was it signaling? According to the sources, the churches, the prophecies, the documented warnings, the sign means, pay attention. What you've been ignoring is about to become undeniable. A pastor from Georgia shared his perspective. The prophecies aren't threats. They're invitations. They're saying, wake up, reconsider, choose consciously instead of drifting unconsciously. For the older demographic particularly, the 65-plus group making up half of viewers, this carries unique weight. People who've lived through major historical events. People who've seen how truth and distraction compete in public consciousness. People who remember when prophecy was discussed more openly in American culture. The warning within is simple. Don't wait for clarity. Clarity comes through seeking, not through waiting. Several documented prophecies mention this specifically. Those who seek will find. Those who wait will be confused. It's not complicated theology. It's straightforward. Take responsibility for your own truth-seeking. The events described in the prophecies aren't good or bad in themselves. They're revealing. They're stripping away the layers of distraction that prevent most people from thinking seriously about their own beliefs. What will you believe when comfortable narratives fail? What will you trust when institutions lose credibility? What will guide you when the rules change? These aren't abstract questions anymore. According to the prophecies and the pattern of the Red Sky event, these are becoming lived questions within months. The warning is simultaneously terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because comfort disappears. Liberating because confusion finally breaks. One phrase appears in multiple prophecies. After the awakening comes clarity. But clarity only comes to those actively seeking it. Those refusing to seek simply experience chaos. The red sky wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. And the beginning always demands choice. On November 2nd, exactly 18 days after the red sky phenomenon, something happened that nobody predicted. A sealed envelope arrived at the offices of the Library of Congress. No return address. Dated 1952. Inside was a prophecy, new to public knowledge, written by someone who wouldn't be identified until after 3 weeks of investigation. The prophecy was specific, too specific. It described the red sky event. Then it described something else. Something that would happen 40 days after the red sky. The exact date, the exact nature, the exact implications. When the Library of Congress made the prophecy public, panic spread differently than it had after the red sky. This wasn't fear. This was urgent attention. The prophecy described an event that, if accurate, would change everything about how America understood prophecy itself. Not metaphorically, literally. A verifiable, undeniable event that would happen on a specific date, 40 days from October. That date was November 19th. As of this recording, November 19th hasn't arrived yet. The nation waits, some in faith, some in fear, most in confusion. The prophecy sits public now, known, documented, circulating. Millions of people mark the date. Millions more are divided about what it means. What happens on November 19th? Will the prophecy prove accurate? Or will this be revealed as elaborate coincidence? More importantly, how will Americans respond if the prophecy is correct? The red sky may have been just the beginning. The real test comes when prediction becomes reality. When time proves whether these warnings were genuine or merely entertaining speculation. 40 days after the crimson sky, 19 days from now, everything changes or nothing changes. But one way or another, the nation will finally have to answer the question it's been avoiding for decades. Is America actually hearing a voice from beyond, or have we simply learned to see patterns in noise? The answer comes in less than 3 weeks.